The wood that comes out of him. Oh, I'm 12. His wood, it's very sturdy. Hey geeks, welcome to my channel. I'm Trey Guillotine, and you're watching Daily Marvels, where I give a few thoughts on some of the Marvel news that went on in the past week. We get a look at Thor's new hammer. Natalie Portman could be returning to the Thor franchise. A new Team Thor short is on the Thor Blu-ray, and we could be getting an all-women Marvel crossover. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share it around so others can join in the conversation. So we have another spoiler for Avengers Infinity War coming out of a toy. This is, by my count, the third big spoiler. This is, by my count, the third spoiler coming out of the Avengers Infinity War toy line. And this one is regarding Thor's new hammer. And I don't even want to call it a hammer. It's actually more like, it actually looks like, and kind of like a hammer axe crossover. So the weapon that he's going to be getting in Avengers Infinity War is actually called the Stormbreaker, which from what I've read is actually a weapon that was made for Beta Ray Bill in the comics. If you don't know who Beta Ray Bill is, again, from my research, he's kind of like another Thor-like character. He's an alien, and his race, and Beta Ray Bill, or at least his race, has actually been teased in the MCU twice so far. Once in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, when, in the very beginning, when Star-Lord is going through the temple, you see a skeleton that kind of looks like it has a horse skull. That's the race that Beta Ray Bill is a part of. And then on the Grandmaster's Tower in Thor Ragnarok, there's actually, like, when he has the sculptures of the different heads of his champions, there's one that looks like Beta Ray Bill. So he's been teased in the MCU a couple of times now, and a lot of fans have been wanting to see him. He's a big fan favorite from what I understand. Well, Stormbreaker is actually a weapon that was made for Beta Ray Bill in the comics, but it looks like Thor is going to be picking this weapon up in Avengers Infinity War. From the looks of it, it doesn't so much look like a hammer, but it looks like kind of like a hammer axe crossbreed. It has a wooden haft or handle, whatever it's actually called, a wooden handle. And then on one side of the weapon is clearly a hammer. It looks like a hammer, and then the other side looks like you would expect on a workman's hammer, or a construction hammer, you would expect to see the claw of that hammer. But where this is actually looks more like an axe. The interesting thing about this weapon is that the handle, it's very clearly wooden, but it actually looks like it could be the same type of wood that Groot is made of. We know from the teaser that Thor is probably the first character in the MCU to encounter the Guardians of the Galaxy, including Groot. So it's very possible that Groot lent part of his being, he's a pretty sturdy character. The wood that comes out of him. Oh, I'm 12. His wood, it's very sturdy. So it would make a great handle for a weapon. So it's very possible that the wood for this hammer axe for the Stormbreaker is actually from Groot, which I think that would be actually a really cool weapon to have. That it's something kind of personal, like a gift from one future Avenger to another Avenger. So I think that sounds pretty cool. But again, this is the third spoiler we've had for Avengers Infinity War coming out of its toy line. In an interview for her upcoming movie Annihilation, which the book for is actually really good, so if you haven't read it, check it out. That's not Marvel news, but it's still a pretty good book, and the movie looks pretty good as well. But for her new movie Annihilation, Natalie Portman was asked if there was any plans on her return to Marvel as Jane Foster in the Thor franchise. And her comment is, "I'm completely open to everything, but I have no news about that." So right now, as far as we know, there's no plans to bringing Jane Foster back as of yet, but she says that she's completely open to it. From what we know, originally Chris Hemsworth said that he was reinvigorated by Thor Ragnarok to continue doing Thor, and that he's open to it, and that statement has slightly changed. He says that as of right now, his contract's over and he's not going to be doing Thor anymore, that Avengers Infinity War and Avengers 4 will be the last we see of Chris Hemsworth Thor, but he is open to returning if they get a really good script. So chances are it's very possible we could be seeing Chris Hemsworth Thor in the future installments of the MCU. So that's kind of like, as far as we know, it's ending right now, but it's incredibly possible and even likely that he could return. But with kind of the creating a more diverse Marvel Cinematic Universe of heroes, I think it would actually be really cool if they brought Jane Foster back in as she is portrayed in recent comics as Lady Thor. Personally, I think Jane Foster was in Thor and Thor Dark World. I think Jane Foster was kind of one of the weak links of that series. Like, it's not that she was a bad character. She was just kind of blah. I don't know. I know Natalie Portman is an amazing actor, so I don't think it's necessarily her fault. It felt like Thor and Thor Dark World felt like they were trying to figure out how to tell the Thor story with Jane Foster, and I don't think they did it very well, or at least they didn't do it in a way that I was really interested in. As far as we know in Thor right now, that they had a mutual breakup, as Thor says in Thor Ragnarok that she didn't dump me, we dumped each other. I dumped her. It was a mutual breakup. So chances are Jane dumped Thor. For whatever reason. We don't know the exact reason, because at the end of Thor Dark World, they were all kissy-kissy, and then he mentions that they're still together in Age of Ultron. He says he's off doing a science thing. So what we know now of Jane Foster in the MCU without seeing her is that she's doing very well in the scientific community, and her and Thor are no longer an item. If they bring Jane Foster back, I think it would be really cool to bring in that Lady Thor character and that storyline. I don't know all the details of the storyline. What I've heard about it sounds really interesting. So I think that would be really cool to see. And it would definitely fit the kind of theme that Marvel is going with having a much more diverse cast. So Thor Ragnarok is coming out on Blu-ray very soon, and in the extras, there's actually another short of Team Thor. Although I think this one is specifically Team Darryl. So if you remember before Thor Ragnarok, they were doing a lot. They did 2 videos of Team Thor, and it was basically what Thor was doing during. It was what Thor was doing during Captain America Civil War, why he wasn't there. And he was apparently hanging out in Australia with his new roommate, Darryl. And he was visiting Darryl's work, and he was, talking to different... It's just a very funny video of Thor being Thor, and like Bruce Banner comes in at some point, and they were very funny videos, and they're actually very similar to the style of What We Do in the Shadows, which is a movie that Taika Waititi, the director of Thor Ragnarok, did, where it was basically a mockumentary of vampire roommates. Such a funny movie. Please go see it. One of the funniest movies I've seen in years. But and then I actually saw those first, and then I saw What We Do in the Shadows, and Team Thor, the videos made a lot more sense. Well, they actually have a new one coming out on the extras of the Blu-ray, and this one is called Team Darryl. It does not include Thor, but it's Darryl, and he moves to, I think, Los Angeles, and he gets a new roommate of the Grandmaster, starring Jeff Goldblum. So basically, Darryl and the Grandmaster living together. They only showed a really small clip of the short, so the short will be a little bit longer than the clip was. The clip was very short, of Team Darryl, with Darryl interacting with the Grandmaster. It's very funny. It's as funny. The clip was as funny as I was expecting it to be, especially with Jeff Goldblum, who, as much fun as the Grandmaster was, it was basically just Jeff Goldblum playing Jeff Goldblum. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this. I actually don't. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this. But I'm assuming this is that the Team Darryl short is going to take place after the events of Thor Ragnarok and after the Grandmaster's supposed banishment from Sakaar after the successful revolution thrown by the characters of Thor Ragnarok that the Grandmaster was so proud of. So we could call Team Thor and Team Darryl canon. It might be canon, it might not be. I don't know. It's a lot of fun. So I'm very looking forward to seeing this on the Blu-ray. So recently, Tessa Thompson confirmed that there are talks going around Marvel Studios of an all-female superhero Marvel movie. So basically, an Avengers, but just the female heroes, which I think would be such a great idea, especially now with the status of the amount of great female superhero characters with Black Widow, with Scarlet Witch, with Captain Marvel coming up in 2019, with the massive amount of strong women in Black Panther. I would love to see this kind of movie and them working together. However, I do have a question of what exactly the scenario would be to bring these characters together. Now we know Black Widow and Scarlet Witch are already more or less probably in contact. They're probably on like the same group. They're probably on like the same GroupMe app of, all of Captain America and his fellow exiled Avengers on the run. They're probably on the same GroupMe so they can text each other and, meet to go save the world. But I'm curious how Captain Marvel is going to fit into this, and also how any of the other characters like Valkyrie, like the women of Wakanda. I also, and this is probably bordering on sexist, just me even asking this question, what's the scenario that would have just the female heroes working to save the world or stop whatever villain it is they would stop without the likes of Captain America or Iron Man? Not that they can't, not that they couldn't, but the initial question I had is like what would the reason be that Captain America or Iron Man or Thor or any of the other Avengers would not show up to save this? Because even though it might feel like it, like the original Avengers film, it wasn't like, Captain America and Iron Man and Thor and Hulk saying like, we're going to save the world. Sorry, Black Widow. You get to stay on the sidelines. That wasn't necessarily the case, even if it feels like it from a production standpoint. Black Widow was involved. She did show up. The same with Scarlet Witch showing up in the same with Scarlet Witch in Age of Ultron. Same with Scarlet Witch and Captain America Civil War, like they showed up. So I'm just curious of what it would be, or what the reasons would be that the other heroes wouldn't show up. But you could also toss it up to reasoning being like, why didn't Iron Man or Hulk or Hawkeye show up to help Captain America in The Winter Soldier? Or why didn't Captain America show up to help Iron Man in Iron Man 3 save the President of the United States? So chances are the scenario wouldn't even be that big of a deal of why they want to ship up. The answer would be they just didn't. But having an all-female cast, I think, would be really cool, and it would give a lot of spotlight to some really amazing characters, especially the women of Wakanda who were just such a strong addition to not only Wakanda, not only to Black Panther, but to just the rest of the MCU. That is one of the things I'm now so excited for Avengers Infinity War, to see how these characters are going to fit in and interact with other characters of the MCU, like Shuri, like T'Challa's brilliant engineer, scientist sister, who's going to interact with the likes of Bruce Banner and Tony Stark and Doctor Strange. Something that I would just be so excited to see, but I think this idea would be really, really good, and I think a lot of people would react very strongly to it. What do you think about these daily Marvels, and are there any news stories you'd like to talk about? Let me know in the comments, and follow me on all the internets. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it around so others can join the conversation. If you want to check out my reviews of Marvel TV shows and movies, go to www.treyguillotine.com and subscribe to my channel to geek out some more. Thanks for watching, and have fun.